They always told me the absolute isolation of this remote island would eventually make me hear things. But they never warned me that the radio would start answering back from the dead. For 10 long years, my only companion on this jagged, wind-swept rock has been the relentless, cold ocean and the rhythmic, sweeping beam of my towering stone lighthouse. Tonight, a violent, monstrous storm is battering the cliffs. I stare out into the pitch-black abyss, desperately searching for any helpless ships lost in the churning, raging waves. Suddenly, a sharp, metallic sound echoes from the darkest corner of the generator room. It is a rhythmic, frantic clicking noise that instantly freezes the warm blood in my veins. I look straight down at the dusty, forgotten desk. The old brass telegraph machine, completely disconnected from any electrical power source for half a century, is vigorously tapping on its own. My trembling fingers slowly reach out toward the cold metal key. It is vibrating with a frantic, desperate energy, spelling out letters in a language I spent years mastering. I step back in complete disbelief, slowly retreating toward the heavy wooden door. But the rhythmic, metallic clacking only grows louder, echoing off the cold stone walls of the tower. I stand frozen in the deep shadows, listening closely. ... The universal cry for desperate help. SOS, someone out there in the dark is pleading for rescue. My eyes frantically scan the dark, empty room. This machine isn't connected to a single live wire. It is a ghost in the cold machine, screaming into the silent night. I run up the winding spiral stairs of the ancient lighthouse, the ocean roaring outside like a hungry, mythical beast trying to swallow this tiny, isolated island whole. Peering through the rain-streaked glass of the high lantern room, I look down at the swirling black water, fully expecting to see a modern vessel in deep distress. But there is absolutely nothing out there. Just the empty, foaming sea. I slowly climb back down, drawn to the relentless clicking that simply refuses to be ignored. I sit down at the weathered wooden desk, grabbing a yellowed notepad and a pencil to quickly transcribe the impossible message that is bleeding through the silent ether. My pencil flies frantically across the paper as I translate the rapid Morse code. The letters slowly form words, spelling out a terrifying, historically impossible distress message. I walk over to the dusty bookshelf, my boots heavy on the old floorboards, searching for the historical archives that might explain this impossible, phantom transmission. The message reads, SOS SS Valencia. Striking rocks off Cape Beale. February 22, 1906. My breath completely hitches. That tragic ship sank over a century ago. I stare at the handwritten words, my mind racing wildly. How is a signal from a 100-year-old maritime disaster successfully reaching my offline telegraph tonight? The storm rages harder, violently rattling the thick glass panes. I feel utterly microscopic on this tiny, forgotten outpost, trapped between the living world and the dead. I look out at the exact coordinates written on my notepad, projecting where the ill-fated SS Valencia allegedly struck the reef just off my rugged northern shore. Suddenly, a blinding flash of white lightning illuminates the sky, and for a split second, I swear I see the dark silhouette of a massive, ancient wooden steamship. I look down at my hand. It is shaking uncontrollably now. The telegraph stops clicking for a brief, agonizing moment, plunging the small room into a heavy, suffocating silence. Then, the old vacuum tube radio receiver next to the telegraph suddenly hums to life, glowing with a warm, eerie, pulsing orange light in the dark room. I slowly back away from the radio console as a low, crackling static begins to fill the air, sounding exactly like heavy waves crashing against a wooden hull. Through the heavy static, a human voice begins to emerge. It is faint, distorted, and utterly drenched in pure panic, crying out over the sound of rushing water. My heart completely stops. The panicked voice on the radio isn't a stranger. The cadence, the tone, the accent, it sounds terrifyingly familiar to my own ears. I stand frozen in the center of the dark room as the storm outside unleashes its full fury, violently shaking the very stone foundations of the old lighthouse. I stare at the old, faded black and white photograph framed on the wall. It shows my grandfather, the lighthouse keeper who mysteriously vanished right here in 1912. The voice on the radio cries out, "Arthur. If you can hear this, do not turn on the beacon tonight. The light is what draws them to us." I look down at the massive control panel. The master switch for the giant rotating glass prism is humming loudly, casting its brilliant, sweeping light across the ocean. My hand hovers over the massive, cold metal lever. If I shut it down now, any real ship in the stormy area will crash against the deadly, jagged rocks. I run up the winding stairs once more, desperate to see what monstrous them my grandfather's ghost was warning me about in his frantic, time-bent message. Standing at the very top of the tower, I look out into the raging storm, my mind tearing itself completely apart trying to make sense of the impossible. Through the blinding, icy rain, I see them. Giant, glowing shapes rising from the depths of the black ocean, drawn directly toward my sweeping beam of light. They are not ships. They are colossal, ancient deep-sea leviathans, their massive tentacles and jagged bodies breaking the dark surface of the churning, violent sea. I watch in absolute horror as one of the colossal beasts reaches toward the lighthouse, its glowing, massive eyes locked directly onto my brilliant, rotating beacon. The radio speaker downstairs screeches one final, agonizing warning in my grandfather's voice: "They fed on us in 1912, Arthur. They will feed on you tonight." I look down at the ocean swirling around the stone base of my tower. The dark water is alive with glowing, alien eyes looking straight up at me. My hands tightly grip the cold iron railing of the balcony. The stone tower begins to crack violently as a massive, wet tentacle wraps around the base. I rush back inside to the dark switch room, knowing I have only seconds left to make a terrifying choice that will seal my fate forever. If I turn off the light, I doom the innocent ships at sea. If I leave it on, they devour me. What would you do in my place?